Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Coach Rodo's Winning Regardless podcast. Today, I want to talk about the importance of youth sports. Um, youth sports today is a lot different than it was when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, we all was from the neighborhood. It was like I grew up on the South Side, so we had our Rocket football team, our Pop Warner football team. West Side had their Pop Warner football team. East Side had their own Pop Warner football team. And South, so on and so forth. There was none of this, teen camps. Our kids, the travel stuff, that divided you up. It was pretty much neighborhood versus neighborhood. And the one thing that I loved about youth sports was it gave me something to do as a kid consistently. Today we have a problem in youth sports as far as money is taking it over. We got the private lessons for most kids. Your best kids, they don't stay in the neighborhood anymore. They get recruited by these other little teams, and they take them, and they move them out. And people, what we as parents, even though it's great, and it makes you feel good. What we're doing is we're taking our kids away from their friends. You know, um, if you remember anything about being a kid, you didn't care how good you were unless your friends in your neighborhood told you how good you were. You didn't really care about what people on the west side thought about you. If mugs on the south side said you were sweet, that's all that matters. Then you was sweet. Now the kids that we say are like that, they take them and, hey, your kid is sweet, so we're going to specialize him, and then we want him to come to this program, and then they leave. What youth sports did for me and not having that aspect like these kids have today is I got to stay with my friends. One of the most important things in my life is I have so many friends back home, and all we talk about is the sports that we played together, not against each other, but together with each other when we were youths. You know, it's hard for kids to enjoy youth sports when it is based on money. Youth sports, I don't believe it should be based on money. I mean, of course, you should have the money to be able to play in tournaments and do things as far as the practices, rent the fields, stuff like that. But I don't remember as a kid, I don't ever remember us renting a field. I remember us, hey, we got practice at Benjamin Davis. We got baseball practice. Well, Benjamin Davis was an open field. I mean, I don't know if those days are gone or not, but, you know, um, it was important that we had a place to practice that was free, and we didn't didn't think about the money that was involved, because back then money involvement in sports was not a big deal. I mean, I understand now that it's a paying thing, but again, we're taking away from what youth sports was really all about, which was friendship, I believe, and competitiveness, and keeping your ass out of trouble, and giving you something to do all day, every day, and being able to play it whether you had practice or not. You and your friends are outside playing. You learned how to play, not even just the sport. People don't understand. You know, every aspect of playing as a kid had a sports connotation to it. Tag. You had to juke a mug if you didn't want him to tag you. You had to juke him, because if he tagged you, you was it or you was frozen. That's you use that footwork in football, you use that footwork in track, you use that footwork in baseball. It was if you played hide and seek, it was that it had an aspect, an element of sport in it. For because hunting is a sport. I mean, you're not gonna sit right out in the open for the deer to see you. I mean, even everything that you do as a kid that relies on play has a lot to do with sports, and we only consider youth sports being football, basketball, baseball, soccer, track, but sport is play. It's it teaches you, how to compete. It teaches you how to come to a common goal, everyone having a common goal. And sometimes it's not winning. Sometimes it's about making other people better, making your other friends better, picking your other friends up so that when y'all play against the West Side, hey, we all even. We don't have, they can't go after our weak link. That's what youth sports did. It taught you, and it was harsh. It was all about your mentality because in my neighborhood, we would tell you if you were sorry. But the one thing we wouldn't let you do is quit youth sports. You couldn't quit. You had to, hey man, you sorry, motherfucker, can you tackle? But guess what? We get done after practice, we play Kill the Man, and the same motherfucker we was talking about, man, get your ass over here. We about to learn how to tackle now. We playing Kill the Man. You throw that ball up in the air, run, go get him. You learn to tackle. Why? Because your friends dogs you. You didn't get to run. You didn't get to go home and say, hey, I don't want to do it anymore because so-and-so said I suck. Okay, well, what do you got to do to get better? That's what youth sports does, because at a young age, you get to forget. By the time you become a grown-up, you're going to forget everything unless it made you better or made you who you were. Because none of us start out to be professional athletes. You have to do youth sports to find out even if you love playing sports. And you think about it, when you were a kid, you played every sport. Now we take that away from our kids. We specialize them, we take away, I want you to be a baseball player. Well, goddamn, what if I wanted to play football and basketball too? But you got me doing all of these baseball, programs and going to pitching classes and hitting classes. Well, my friends is outside playing football at the park, or, they out there playing, stickball. But I'm here doing this, and again, the kid is going to tell you that they want to do it because sometimes they do want to do it. But one thing that I've learned from being a coach, kids want to be kids. Kids want to play. How do you know? Have you ever sat back after a game and watched the group of kids? I don't know about you, but my kids, they never fucking sat down. We'd get done playing a full basketball game, be hot as hell. I go outside. I'm trying to get them to stay inside in the air conditioner. I go outside. The motherfuckers out there playing Foursquare. Motherfuckers out there running around chasing each other, trying to take each other's food. Little just kids being kids, and that's what youth sports do, or does. And I feel as parents, because we want to live vicariously through them, we take that away from them. Not realizing that essentially we take them away from their friends. I was lucky enough to have, my oldest son, fucking brilliant, fucking smart, straight A student. So, athletics wasn't his thing. Working and making money was his thing. Our youngest was smart as well, but athletics was his thing. But the one thing that I never wanted to do was not let him be a kid. So if he did play travel baseball and it came a weekend where they were going out of town, but he wanted to go camping with his buddy in North Carolina, how often is he going to get the chance to go camping with his buddy in North fucking Carolina? But these baseball tournaments, we had one of these motherfuckers every goddamn weekend. We had a basketball tournament every weekend. So I would always weigh those things like, as a child, what would I want to do? Man, go spend the weekend with your friend down in North Carolina. Be good. You know what you're supposed to do. Call us if you need anything. Call his baseball coach and let him know, well, we could really use Devin. Yeah, well, he wants to take this weekend and go hang out with his buddies. I was okay with allowing my son to be a kid. And guess what? It fucking never hurt him. The motherfucker got basketball scholarships, got all of his college paid for. The goal was never to go pro. When we set out, or when we finally figured out that we had a goal with sports other than to play, have a good time, have structure, discipline, friends. Once we got past that, the goal was to get school paid for. Well, guess what? He did that. because you don't really see very many 5'10", 6 foot point guards unless you're Steph Curry in the NBA. So he already knew in his mind that sports is my conduit to get my education, to be able to get a good job, to take care of my needs and my wants in life. And it started with youth sports. And again, I feel a lot of it was because I allowed him to be a kid first. And I mean, that was tough for me because, I was one of those athletes and felt if I had this break and I had that break, I could be doing this. I could have been doing that. We all do that if you were a good athlete. Um, but I had to not project that on my child. And we as parents, we do that. And when we do that, we pull them away and we specialize them. And now all of a sudden, their friends aren't the same. Now all of a sudden, they don't know the new kid that moved into the neighborhood because they've been gone. And all of a sudden, kids don't come knocking on your door no more to come play because they know you're gone and you're going to do something. Therefore, you're missing out on experiences in life that you can never get back, that shape and mold you as a child. You know, and I'm not saying that parents are bad and wrong, the ones who do that. By any means, you do what you feel is best for your child. This is just my opinion. This is just what I've witnessed. This is what I've coached. This is how I felt as a child. I always try to take myself back, even when I was punishing my kids, how would I feel? What would be the big deal for me as a kid and in this moment, in this situation? That's how I would punish them based on, well, is it really worth what I want to do? No, it ain't. And you find out 9 times out of 10 as a parent that it's not. However, but back to what we're talking about. Youth sports is a great way to teach your kids how to react in society. You play against other teams and you make friends on other teams. You start to pay attention to each other throughout you guys' middle school, high school careers. The specialization thing to me, with it taking you away from your friends, it also gives you a complex of sometimes, you know, thinking that you're better than, and you have to be humbled. I know I have a kid that I coached who, great kid, but had one of those situations because he was a hell of a baseball player, but he was a great kid. I mean, the kid, an example of kids loving youth sports. He was my quarterback on my 11-year-old football team, racket football team. He had a baseball tournament. His dad played baseball at one of the colleges. One of the colleges, one of the big colleges. So his dad was a big time baseball. So he made sure his kid was into baseball like that. But he also played rocket football and was my quarterback. He had a baseball tournament. Wasn't gonna be, and it was our last game. Wasn't even gonna be able to play. His mother said he cried that whole week because he wanted to play in the football game. Not the baseball tournament, the football game. And why? Because his friends, and they said because of the coach, which was me. But I have that's neither here nor there. But and it just touched me so much, and it touched her so much that she told his dad he's not going. I mean, look at him. He's fucking miserable because he wants to be at this football game and not going to travel baseball, playing with kids that he know, but not his friends. See, there's a difference. When you go to these things, these are kids that's coming from other areas. So you didn't play with them. You guys didn't tie each other's shoes. You guys didn't go into the store where one of you got money and come out with something for everybody, like the kids on this football team with him did. So it was a big deal to him to be around his friends. And as he got older with baseball, he played on my basketball team, stayed around, played every sport other than once he got into high school, he stopped playing football. I get a phone call about how he was acting at a baseball game. I mean, he's a really good baseball player, but he didn't like something that was done. You know, showed up the person who, and it was funny because of all the people that they could have called. I got a phone call. I'm in Mexico. I get a phone call. They tell me about it, and I call him. What is this I hear about you? Hey, coach. Yeah, what's this I hear? Uh, uh, what? No, no, I already know. I mean, but why? Why? Uh, uh, you know, the more the reason I'm telling you this is because he got away from what was fun. And it became so important, like it was a job, to where he treated grown-ups as if they were kids. And he's a kid. And again, that comes from being taught in youth sports. You respect the referee as if that was your motherfucking parent. You would never talk back to your parent, at least I hope. So therefore, you never talk back to a referee. And, having that conversation with him, he felt so horrible about it. And, his mom got on the phone with me and it was like, me and his dad told him this, that, and the third, but it's really affected him hearing from you how fucked up it was. And I say, when you take kids away from their friends, because your friends also teach you how to behave. The one thing I gotta say about travel is, because it costs money, then your kids are fucking privileged. I'm not afraid to say that. Cause my kid played travel baseball. Fuck yeah, my son was privileged. You know what I mean? Cause I had the money, we had the money to pay for the motherfucker to do it. Just like all the other parents that send their kids, so they're privileged. What you sport do in the neighborhood, it teaches you we all on the same level. You ain't no fucking better than I am. And that's what he lost. And I believe when we take our kids out of youth sports and specialize them, that's what we lose. That's what they lose. Because again, you as a parent, as a grown up, can tell a kid how fucked up they are all you want to. But until they friends tell them, until they peers tell them how fucked up they are, they'll never listen to you and they'll never believe it. So youth sports has a lot to do with how your children become women, men, mothers, fathers, employees, employers. Youth sports has a lot to do with the type of human being that you'll end up being. It played a lot in the type of human being that I am. It played a lot in the type of human being that both of my boys are. Played a lot in my editors who told me it taught him how to learn what his role is when he would play college football. Being the best, well, being the best in his area, from youth football all the way up. And then when you go to a college and they tell you you're a practice fucking dummy, you got to know your role right there. You got to humble yourself. Youth sports teaches you how to do that. Some travel sports do, but most of the time it doesn't, because you're at that level where everything now is about money. What youth sports is about fun and about the lessons that you learn in life. And you learn that everybody is on equal footing. When the gun fires, it's time to run that race. That's when you find out who's out of their class and who isn't. You know, youth sports teaches you how to know about your role in life. Again, talking about going to college, being a top player in your area, going to school, and now you're a practice dummy. Coach calls you and tell you that's what you are. What can I do to get and what if he tells you there's nothing you can do? What do? Do you use it as a life lesson, or do you say pout and say fuck it, I quit? I mean, no, you sports helps you figure out which one of those two you're going to do. Youth sports teaches you how to accept your role. It teaches you how to accept when other people tell you what your position is, because you can't always pick your own position. Other people that are of authority figures teaches you or tell you what your position is. And youth sports, in my estimation, teaches you how to accept that. It doesn't mean you have to be okay with it, but it teaches you how to accept that. So therefore, in youth sports, you always have a chance to change your position. You always have a chance to get better or to get worse. But most of the time, they get better. And I found that most of my kids got better when they stayed in the fucking neighborhood. Not when they went out and played with kids that were, just as good as them, or playing with these AAU basketball teams, these, baseball travel. But my son did it all. But I still think his best was when he was playing youth sports with his friends in the neighborhood. Why? Because I saw him teach kids his age, 10-year-olds, hey, if you cut here, I'll hit you with a bounce pass. I watched him, hey, get them hands up or the ball gonna hit you in the face. I saw him be an instructor. I saw my oldest, go through the neighborhood and challenge kids in basketball and in football and, running around the neighborhood, running track and, just seeing him, I just got to see him being kids, because that's what youth sports brings out. Whereas doing the travel brings out so much competitiveness that you forget about fun. I always used to ask my team, or not even my team, when my son played, what my first question to him was, did you have fun? I didn't care about winning or losing. I needed to know how your attitude was going to be that day. If you had fun, you were going to have a good attitude. Well, some days he didn't have fun because he was competitive, and losing isn't as fun as winning. However, he never came home and complained about the type of fun that he did or did not have, because he understood that having fun is for my one team. This team is about competitiveness. What playing youth sports taught him was how to decipher between the two, when to be serious and when to have a good time. And I always, again, thought he was the best player I ever saw was when he was playing away, aside from his travel teams. Even now, as a grown-up, when I go to one of the league or two of the league games, I watch him, and it's still like I smile, because it's still like the little kid I see out there, giving the special needs kid in his middle school team the ball to score a bucket in the very last game of their middle school, because nobody ever did, and this kid would never get in the game, and this is something he's going to remember for the rest of his life. Youth sports teaches you that shit. It teaches you compassion. It teaches you how to have a heart for somebody. It teaches you that if you're better than somebody at something, then I'm going to help this other person with my skill do something they probably will never, ever be able to do again or never have done. This kid will remember for the rest of his life, that Devin in the 7th grade got him the ball the last game of the season. He took 8 shots and he made 1. And I love my boys because youth sports also taught them how to give. We never did the fundraising things that they do with youth sports, because I was just never for that stuff. But they learned how to give in the fact of helping kids get better and learn and essentially enjoy youth sports. Enjoy it to where the moms will come up and say, hey, he wasn't going to sign up the next session. Now he's gonna. Alex made him enjoy it so much. That's my oldest son. Alex made him enjoy it so much that he's decided that he's going to sign up again. Youth sports does that. He had so much fun playing with Devin that, we thought that, he wasn't going to play basketball or baseball, football anymore. But, he says every time, my friend Devin, and it's like, it's youth sports. It teaches you how to make friends. It teaches you how to be friends. And it also teaches you how to compete at the same time and to understand that it ain't about money all of the time. You use money to hone skills. You don't use money to make youth sports. So that's my opinion and that's my feel and that's my take on youth sports. How necessary I believe it is in life for our children, how necessary it is in our life for parents because it gives us something to do. It gives us an outlet on the weekend. It gives us some fun. It gives you a chance to praise your child if you don't otherwise get to. So again, all of these is my opinions. If you have any questions or anything, write them. We can always discuss them. Again, just strictly my opinion. I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you for listening to another edition of Coach Rodo's Winning Regardless podcast.